I have been informed that tonight's story is so graphic, violent, and vile that we must advise parental guidance. Which is to say, guide your parentals out of the room. We're going to have ourselves a ball with tonight's tale, which is known as The Scribe, the Ghost, and the Beast.
It was autumn of the year 1348 of his lord. Felix, an elder scribe, was cowering behind a fallen tree, clutching his journal tight to his chest. A dozen men had gone with him, following the knight Sir Thomas to investigate a strange creature that had been sighted outside of the village. He wasn't brave enough to look, but judging how the screaming had stopped, he could only assume he was all that was left of the party. He stared down at the ground, trembling, sweating, praying, seeing bugs skitter amongst the blades of grass. Perhaps in a way, to withhold his sanity, he tried to focus on them. There seemed to be so many of them. On any other day, he would have just assumed one bug is the same as another. But watching them, he noticed how different they all were. He wondered what they were called, and if he would live long enough to learn their species. That was when he heard the voice of Sir Thomas cursing the creature. Finally, he found his nerve, and Felix peeked out from behind the tree. Only the knight and that thing were left. He admired Thomas's courage. Standing in the grass, sword pointed, he seemed rock-steady denouncing the monster. Felix could hardly bring himself to look directly at it. A hulking, tall figure clad in filthy robes, covered in bandages that were leaking and seeping blood and other fluids. Tufts of matted fur peeked out from between the bandages, while from beneath its hood the creature growled and glared at the knight. It made some guttural sound, and the two charged each other. Felix wanted to write down what he was seeing, but he also couldn't take his eyes off the battle. So he stood there behind the tree, watching in a mix of horror and hope. Thomas, in spite of being several feet shorter than the thing, was quick, even with the armor he wore over his chest and shoulders. The creature, meanwhile, seemed unaware of any strike, and simply lashed out with its long limbs. Finally, Thomas managed to land a strike to the creature's head. Felix felt bile rise up in his throat, seeing the hood thrown back, revealing the creature's face. Part of him had hoped it would just be a person. The rough shape underneath the robes and bandages looked like it could have been one, but it was no human that looked down at Thomas, rather a beast, with a mouth full of fangs, flexed round ears, discolored uneven patches of fur, a flat mushroom-shaped nose, and hate-filled dark eyes. Even Thomas seemed to retch at the sight before the creature grabbed hold of his chest and pulled him close. Felix looked away and ducked back behind the tree. He heard Thomas partly shout one last curse before a sickening sound of bones snapping and gore splattering on the grass silenced him. Felix finally lost the fight with his stomach and vomited while he heard the noise of loud chewing. Then everything was quiet again, till Felix heard a voice, one that, to his horror, sounded oddly familiar.
"Do you intend to interfere, penman?"
Felix's whole body shuddered. He knew that voice. He was sure of it.
"I know you to be there. I saw you. I heard you void your guts, and I smell your empty bowels."
Felix prayed until he heard the monster moving through the grass towards him. Knowing he had nothing else to do in defense, he stood up and gasped, seeing the headless body of Sir Thomas at the monster's feet.
"Halt! I am Sacris Felix of... Roderick?"
Felix could not bring more words out of his mouth. It wasn't just the voice he knew. Those eyes.
I know you. I know you.
The monster froze and tilted its head slightly.
Roderick.
The monster took a half a step back.
Yeah, 7 years ago. You were a groundskeeper. I remember you. Your wife, she... By God, Roderick, what have you done? What have you become?
The creature turned away from Felix and growled.
I know not this Roderick. Perhaps I devoured him once.
Lies. I know your voice. I can see it in your eyes. At least the soul of what was once known as the man Roderick. Roderick, my friend.
This time it was the beast whose body shuddered.
You went out to the woods. Edith was ill. I know, because I was the one who sent you out to find the herbs that could have treated her. Roderick, she wasn't ill. She was with child. A boy. You are the father.
The creature that Felix had called Roderick lowered his head, then turned to face the scribe.
I care not of fathers, only of my mother's will. The fool Roderick found a pagan altar deep below the soil. There I killed him and took his eyes and voice.
Felix threw down his book and stepped over the tree, marching closer to Roderick.
I do not fall for your lies. Now I demand you, speak the truth. What are you doing here?
Roderick backed away again, but finally spoke.
My mother has willed this village to perish.
My God, the plague. You? You are what's been spreading this?
Not I alone, for I am Genali. I am a child of the Evermother. Each of us has worked towards this.
I know not this mother of yours, only my Father in heaven.
I, Roderick as well, but he, in fear, laid offerings upon the wild and old altars, and from him I grew.
And now you bring rot and pain and death to the same very place he lived in, where his wife and son are.
Roderick looked away, not daring to look into Felix's eyes.
And to what end? Am I to depart from here and go tell the poor woman what has befallen her husband? Is Richard to hear what his father has become?
Roderick's ears twitched.
Richard.
Son of Roderick. He all but lives in the gardens and tends the soil, just like his father before him. His father, who once loved this good earth.
The monster trembled in fear.
I cannot halt you from bringing ruin. Yet damned will I be if I bring lies to that poor woman and her child.
The fields. They're so pretty out here. The grass is so still, yet such life crawls over it.
Felix could only mutter while he glared at the creature, never taking his eyes off of it.
But if the field grows so much, does not the groundsman need to trim and dig it?
Men, women, and children are not a garden or a field of grass, Roderick.
What will you say to Edith and Richard?
I should speak to them. I should speak to them honestly. Roderick the man is no more. Only a demon from the wild devil.
Felix saw how underneath his robes and bandages, Roderick was shaking. He saw a glimpse of wetness fall down from the thing's head.
What if I spoke to them, instead of the past? What if I told the tale of the man Roderick once was? Of the gardener who loved the soil, of the man who loved his wife, the man who would have sold his soul for her health. Maybe you did devour Roderick. If only there was health enough within the village for me to be able to tell the tale, and for those who I tell to survive to remember.
The two stood in silence, neither one willing to flinch or give any more ground. Felix was about to turn and walk away when Roderick suddenly turned back to him.
So be it. I shall depart and pass over these people from ruin. If
Felix simply nodded, and the beast turned back from him. Standing at his full height, the monster muttered,
each night smear upon your naked body the fat of a beast mixed with ashes of wood. Then, as you recite the prayer of your Lord, wash it from your body with water warmed from hot coals. For being so close to me, the plague will touch you. But with this ritual, it shall release you.
and with that, the man and the monster walked from each other. And true, the Black Death spread, but it never touched that humble village. And to this day they still tell tales of Sacrist Felix, the ghost of Roderick, who drove out the plague beast, Ginali.
Convenient.
Lies!